upstate New York, presumably in Lake Ontario, was discontinued less than 3 weeks after the plane disappeared and never officially resumed after the war. Yet a handful of war buffs and amateur divers are keenly aware of the tomb, and a few have spent a considerable part of their lives looking for it. Working individually or in small alliances, they have brought different outlooks and expectations to the search: an idealized past, a conspiracy, a travesty, a potential tourist attraction, a treasure hunt. Some are said to be compelled by the lucrative market for rare World War II artifacts. Others are inspired to complete the record of the plane's disappearance while keeping alive a remote hope of returning the remains of the crew to their hometowns with military honors. All tend to be wary of the motives of others. Some believe the relic has been found, its coordinates kept secret to allow it to rest in peace, or provide pillagers exclusive access. Inquiries placed with military offices about the status of the plane hardly clear things up. They produce only generic warnings of the physical perils and legal consequences of diving war graves. In the absence of fact, the seeds of myth are nurtured, and the story of the lost tomb provides fertile ground. There are reports of the wreckage having been spotted by parties not fully appreciating what it was, only to be lost again, moved by currents, forgotten with time, or buried by sediment. One old-timer remembers with certainty, during the summers of his youth in the 1950s, the outlines of the plane being clearly visible from a remote promontory overlooking the lake, when the sun reached a certain height on clear, calm days. He and his boyhood buddies made regular efforts to reach it on inner tubes. They always failed. Distances were greater and depths deeper than they appeared from shore, and the form was invariably lost in reflections as the youths paddled closer. Another lakeside resident, since moved to South Carolina, keeps a small brass hydraulic coupling said to have come from a piece of the wreckage that washed up a week after the plane was lost. The keepsake, connected to an event he knows to be important yet defies anything beyond hazy recollection, has been passed down through 3 generations. As a native of the area where the plane was last heard, I long harbored a latent and incomplete idea of its history. For years, what I knew was nothing more than a memory, briefly and imperfectly recalled by previous generations. The disappearance of an army bomber and crew over my family's cottage at the height of World War II invited youthful wonder. How could it be that, after all this time, nobody had found it? In the absence of a guarded mausoleum or even a simple plaque to ground this memory to actual events, I set about collecting random fragments of oral history and tangible record. Over time, this information grew to include military files, newspaper accounts, correspondence with distant family members, contextual history, and information shared by divers and detectives, some now deceased, who have been at it far longer than I. From these elements, a story emerges, one that reconciles memory with written record and, perhaps, stands as a tribute to those who died before making it to battle. Chapter 1. Deep Dive. The craft arrived at its destination on a summer day in 2016, guided by science, folklore, and intuition. Tim Kaza pulled back the throttle, and his 25-foot research vessel, Voyager, powered down and began idling toward the coordinates. The water that day was calm, making the task somewhat easier. So, too, did the help Kaza had enlisted for the mission. John McLaughlin, a retired volunteer fire chief and body recovery diver, who was climbing around the cuddy and onto the bow. Kaza, with an eye on the GPS, shifted into neutral. As the boat drifted over the designated point, he signaled to McLaughlin, and a moment later the anchor was overboard, the rod running from the chain locker. Kaza cut the power, and the engine noise gave way to the patter of wavelets against the hull and a general sense of stillness. They were within sight of the southeastern shore of Lake Ontario in only 90 feet of water, even though generations of conventional wisdom placed the object of their search somewhere to the west and in much deeper water. Kaza and McLaughlin, both broad at the shoulder, moved about the crowded little boat with practiced steps, the conversation turning to the task at hand. Kaza ducked below and reappeared.